If you read the title, some of you may be very interested in this video. I've made thousands of videos on YouTube, but there's a certain part of me that I don't really talk a whole lot about, and that's for a reason. A lot of people know that I have siblings. I have two sisters, and they want all kinds of things. And I have always kept my family life pretty much out of my YouTube channel. But today is, how did I become a radical homemaker when my family turned away from it? So I thought I would share with you this part of my life, and maybe you can understand some things and it might shed a little light on my life. So as you know, I was born and raised in a very traditional, very plain background. Now, I said in my videos, and I'm not gonna go into all that because I have lots of videos on my background, but my mom and dad left the really plain church, but yet just about everything of their life reflected that plainness, except for, of course, their dress, and of course, except for some doctrinal things. So we won't get into that, but I am the only one that turned into a full-time homemaker, other than my mom. So how did I become a radical homemaker? So whatever you want to think is radical homemaking is someone who's a homemaker all their life, pretty much. Radical homemaking is someone who lives a certain way, very frugal, you know, does a lot of physical work. A radical homemaker is someone who homeschooled her children, which I did. A radical homemaker is what you would consider a old-fashioned way of living, never earning a paycheck outside the home. There's just different summaries on what a radical homemaker means. But I am the only one that continued to be a homemaker. Both of my sisters went into the corporate world. They didn't want to be homemakers, as far as they didn't want that as their career. What made me so different? Well, when my mom and dad adopted me, they were older, and I was a little sponge. From the very beginning of being 3 years old, I knew that I was different than my siblings. Now, understand, my sister was married the same year I was born. So you have to understand there is a huge generational gap there. And my other sister is 5 years older than me, and she was always extremely different than me. We were like total opposites. Being an adopted child, I had characteristics that were not of my adopted family. I looked totally different. I acted totally different. My speech was totally different. My likes were totally different when it comes to as a child. So I was like an apple in a bowl full of oranges. I always say that, like I was this apple in a bowl full of oranges. But my mom was somewhat of an apple too. And my mom always had the Mennonite values of work hard, being a homemaker, cooking by scratch, doing all of these things that I was a sponge and picked up on. While my sisters would tend to be more rebellious, not liking that lifestyle, I just consumed all of it. My mother really took a lot of time and attention to me because growing up, she wanted me to understand, to do a job, to do it well done. To be honest with you, my sister that's 5 years older than me, I have very few memories of her. I don't know why, as far as growing up, because she wasn't that much older than me, except for I had a lot of trauma in my life growing up, and there are certain aspects of my life I can't remember. And it's okay not to remember, but my mind does not want to remember it. My body does not want to remember it, and that is okay. I've done many videos about the corporate punishment and the things I had to go through in my life. I'm not reliving those things because God has healed me of all of those issues. He really has. So I don't play them over and over in my mind anymore. I don't reminisce. I don't ruminate. I don't worry and don't think about the part of my life that would have been considered very extreme as far as punishment and things like that. We leave that go. But my sister was never like me at all. I mean, not at all. We were not friends growing up. I was pretty much remembering me and my mom and my dad. So I got married at age 17, so I only had 17 years with my parents, living with my parents. And in my teenage years, my sister was off doing a lot of things. She was prom queen, or I think she was. She was cheerleader, she was into sports. I liked to read, I liked to do gardening things, I liked to be outside. I was just totally different. I can't even begin to stress that enough. And so my mom taught me how to hang the clothes on the line. My mom taught me how to live a frugal life. My mom taught me how to cook, how to bake, how to clean. Clean was very important to him. All of these things would have seemed boring and frivolous to my siblings. But to me, it was my life. I was extremely close to my mother, and my mother was my world. And then when I got married at age 17, my husband's mom was plain Mennonite. My grandma was plain. My grandma wore a covering, his grandma. And they just extended all of that motherly love because I moved about an hour away from home. And then I started learning even more because they kept the traditional values even more. My grandma, Fanny, my husband's grandma, and she was my best friend besides my mother. Then my mother had over 10 years of changes in her personality due to dementia, due to Alzheimer's, due to other issues in her life. My mother really had a lot of problems with depression, and that was all through my growing up years. My mother was extremely hard on herself. But I grew right into a family that was plain, the way their lifestyle was. And I say my young years because I was 17. And looking back, I realized I was a child yet when I got married. So all of those things have taught me so much. I continue this day to be a radical homemaker because I continue this day to do things the hard way and do things the way that I was taught. And the older I get, the more I become like my mother, and the more my mother speaks to me, and I have all of these memories. I have a lot of memories. I don't forget anything because I am super sensitive. So I will remember things that other people can't remember. I will remember detail, down to detail. I can remember my grandma's house that was plain, very, very plain. I could walk in her house, I could tell you exactly where everything is. I know all of these things, and that can be a curse and a blessing, but for me it's a blessing because if I come up with a memory that is painful, I just quickly take it out of my mind now, and I fill it with a memory that's full of blessings and learning. Basically, my everyday videos are a reflection of my mother and radical homemaking. And radical homemaking is usually extremely frugal because we're making it, we're doing it instead of buying it. And that is what radical homemaking is. Now, you can be a radical homemaker and still work away from home. It's just a different way of living. It's usually with one income, and it's just a traditional old way of living. But radical homemaking is something that I have always done. It's all I've ever known in my life, and it is a blessing to me because I married a husband who wanted to have a woman that stayed at home. He was not wanting a woman that was career oriented. And I can only be what I can be. I can't be anything different. And I stuck to my identity because that gave me the biggest happiness and joy. So while my sisters are nothing like me whatsoever, and they never will be, we all can live in this world and appreciate one another. I could never do what they do, and they sure could never do what I do. I can tell you that. I would not want their life for $1 million. And I can promise you they would not want mine. It's just two different opinions and two different ways of living, But everyone has the right and the choice to live the way they want and to enjoy their life. And I couldn't be happier. I am in my element.